Today, I'm going to interview and introduce you to Christopher Maher. Now, Christopher and I met a little bit ago, and there was an instant connection in three ways. First of all, there's the military connection. Second of all, there's the entrepreneurial connection. And third of all, in our spiritual and our healing approach, our success without distress approach to business, to entrepreneurism, and to life itself. Christopher Maher is a former Navy SEAL who endured intense amounts of physical, mental, and emotional stress as a child and during and after his military career. He has taught himself how to free his energy, body, mind, and emotions from pain by developing the emotional, physical, mental, and spiritual aspects of being. Christopher studied traditional Chinese medical practices at the Pacific College of Oriental Medicine and at Yosan University, then continued his studies at the Universal Healing Tao System. He is a student of Grand Master Montauk Cha at the Universal Tao Master School in Chiang Mai, Thailand, and is currently pursuing his master's and doctorate degrees in traditional Chinese medicine. If there's ever been an interview guest, a guest appearance that has aligned with the message of lead, love, profit, play, it's Christopher. I know you're going to enjoy this episode. This is Mike Kitko, and I'm a small business owner just like you. I'll never be a hustle, horror, grind guru, but I do believe in having it all: health, wealth, and a life full of love. Struggle is not the goal, and sacrifice is not glamorous. I like the path of least resistance. It just takes a shift in mindset and the beliefs you hold. Do you believe that you need to sacrifice now to have what you want later? Or do you believe that you can have it all the time? Because your beliefs create your outcomes. I choose to feel wealthy, successful, and happy every day, and you get to choose for yourself. Welcome to Lead, Love, Profit, Play, where small business owners learn and choose to have it all and choose to create success without the stress. Christopher, it's so awesome to have you here, brother. It's such a privilege and an honor. You're the first SEAL that I've ever had on this podcast, and when we connected offline and we were introduced to each other, it was such a powerful and life-changing experience for me. And I look forward to this day to get you on here and to expose you to my audience and expose you to people that literally need what you have to offer. And man, it's so good to have you here. I'd love to hear where you've been and what got you here. Tell us who you really are, Christopher.
Okay. Well, first off, before I get there, I want to say thank you for opening up your doorway for me to be able to share what I've been developing and experiencing for the last, 54 years that I think could be valuable to the people who are listening. And where did the journey start, right? The journey started for me at a very young age. I had a mother who was, she was highly stressed because she went through a very stressful experience when she was 13 years old. And I won't go into the depth of that, but someone broke her boundaries, and it was a family member. And, she then ended up shifting from a A student consistently to a DF student, and basically dropping out of school. And, from my studies, what I've been discovering through investigation is that people that go through things that are traumatic, they pass those things off to their children. And then their children are operating out of a state of hypervigilance. So for me, going into SEAL training and getting to SEAL teams, it matched the level of stress that was already underneath the hood. And so when I went to SEAL training, it was great. I mean, I was young. I was 20 years old. I was in what they would call the prime of your life. I don't think that's true now. Yet ultimately, as I got through SEAL training and into the SEAL teams, and I left that community, shortly after that, I went back into training because I had a goal, and my goal was to get to the Olympic trials and see if I could get a real shot at making it to the Olympics. And the reason why I chose that goal is because it seemed like when everything was working out for me really well is when I was an athlete.
Hmm.
And I thought, man, when those moons are aligned correctly, everything seems to work out for me with effortless effort. So I jumped back in. The challenge is when I jumped back into training for track and field and Olympic trials with a SEAL team mindset. And that mindset is grind, 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 and keep grinding. And if you can outgrind the next person, guess what? You're going to win at life. And reality is that's true for the SEAL teams, but becoming a highly precision athletes, that is as false as you can get because your body can't recover. So I ended up with a lot of ailments, basic things, knee pain, hip pain, ankle pain, shoulder pain, neck pain. And then it started shifting into other things, right? Which would be loss of vision, loss of hearing, insomnia, waking up 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 times a night to go to the bathroom. And on the outside, I looked like Adonis, right? Lean, strong, fit as can be. But underneath the hood, I had all kinds of pain. And at some point, it didn't make any sense to me because when I was younger and I was training, I only remember having a couple injuries and they only lasted for like 10 days and then they were gone. And now I had them consistently. So instead of being every once in a blue moon, they were chronic. And when you have chronic pain and chronic discomfort, that's your first sign that you are pushing too hard on the gas and you need to pump the brakes. Any time that you have pain in your body, you need to pump the brakes. And what I mean by that is, let's say, you have a poor night's sleep 2 or 3 weeks in a row. Okay. Something's going on, right? You've got digestive issues, right? You're having difficulty moving your bowels on a regular basis. Your vision, you're going to read and you're squinting, or you're holding the phone like 3 or 4 feet away from you, from your eyes. There's something going on because, these eyes are meant to see, right? And if you grind and you push too hard, eventually your body's going to push back. And it's giving you all of these signs. And I was ignoring every sign possible because I was institutionalized to believe that go hard every day, all day long. And I was never considering that I actually wasn't built like that. I'm built to go hard for a short period of time and then to step away. And that was really the growth point for me because I had to reach out and ask for help. And I never asked for help because I went through childhood trauma and I had a lot of stress when I was a kid. And when you have those kinds of things, the last thing you want to do is reach out to someone else because it's easier to be hyper independent.
Sure.
Right. And
unhealthy pride.
Yeah. And I would say that was running more from a subconscious level and an unconscious level than actual conscious choice. Right. When humans are severely stressed and they're operating from subconscious and unconscious stress patterns, they don't actually have any perspective of why they're operating the way that they are. They're just simply responding to stimulus. Sure. And I was in stimulus response mode and I was hypervigilant. And so the more I did, the more I felt like I was alive. But at the end of the day, when I went home and I woke up the next morning, I had to crawl out of bed. I could feel the cost of that, but I continued to keep ignoring it because I bought into a SEAL team mentality. And there's a lot of guys in the SEAL teams that are still out in the public, pushing that message hard, right? But at the end of the day, you got to step back and grow through ease and grace. Because if you don't, you'll eventually struggle.
I love that. And I think, Christopher, everyone that listens to this podcast right now, they know why you're here. They know why you're on, right? So connected. And I want to express this to you, man. Like being a former SEAL team member, it's an act of courage. And I know this. It's an act of courage just for you to speak out in this manner, in this way. It's like going counterculture, right? Because look, the chest thumpers are everywhere, right? The hustle whores, grind gurus, they're everywhere. I was just recently at a seminar, an all-day seminar, and I was the first speaker, and I was the only one talking about how to live a high quality life, not just about achievement and success and stress and struggle and triumph and accomplishment. And brother, it's an act of courage just to be here for you and just to speak in this way, right? When, can't hurt me is prevalent in the world, right? And David Goggins, God love the work that guy does, right? But what you're saying goes so against the grain, and that's why we connected quickly. And I shared this with you, Christopher. It's not about not achieving success. I want to make sure we anchor this, because what you're saying is don't give up achieving success. It's success without the stress. It's about making sure that you're taking care of the machine that is capable of continuing to create success until your last exhale. But it's extending that lifespan, creating success, and making sure we're doing maintenance on the machine during the entire journey. Is this correct?
Yeah, I mean, this is spot on, and everyone is unique, right? So some people have inconsistent energy and they think there's something wrong with them because they have inconsistent energy. And then they're looking for a cup of joe to then drive adrenaline and cortisol and stress hormones through their system so they can keep up with the rest of the world. And I love the message that you're sharing and you're pushing, because at the end of the day, you can keep grinding, but there will eventually be a cost. And the question is, are you willing to pay the cost? And the truth is, I paid the cost. By the time I was 29, I was falling apart, right? The wheels were clearly coming off the car. And when someone chooses to start to listen to their body, right, starts to connect to their spirit, starts to ground their emotions, starts to quiet their mind, they can hear different messages, right? But when you're ungrounded emotionally, meaning you're living in any level of anxiety, anyone on this call that's listening, if you have anxiety, it's completely unnecessary.
Absolutely.
Completely unnecessary. And it's your first sign that you're overstressed.
Absolutely.
Right? Anyone on this call that has any bit of pain in your body, whether it's your neck, your hip, your back, your shoulder, your ankle, your wrist, you are severely stressed. If you have sleep issues, you're severely stressed, right? If your mind is overactive and it never shuts off to give you a moment of peace and quiet, you're overstressed. And when I say overstressed, I mean you're severely stressed, right? If your energy is fragmented, right? Your focus is fragmented, you're severely stressed. Don't get a cup of coffee to try to override the fact that you're overstressed by putting more stress in, right? Like that won't work in the future because the world is changing, right? Let's look at the United States, for instance. The United States is a peasant culture. Let's be honest. All these folks go back, 8, 10, 9, 15 generations. You're going to find that the people that landed here, the majority of them, they were peasant stock. Well, what did peasants have to do in Europe and South America and Africa? They were the laborers, right? So they had to experience life through unfair and inequitable exchange. So they had to give a ton of effort to get nothing. So if they weren't hustling, they couldn't put food on the table. But we don't live like that anymore.
And we just keep teaching. We just keep teaching every generation to do the same as the one before it, right? Because it's the air quotes, the right way to live.
Yeah. So you have to create a pattern interrupt, right? And when you create a successful pattern interrupt, the person suddenly realizes that they're a choice. And it's really fun. I remember when I started taking stress and tension, distortion out of my body, I remember getting out of my Jeep and I was walking towards Jimbo's health food market in Del Mar, California. And I thought to myself, this is how you're supposed to feel when you walk? Because it felt so good. It felt so fluid. And I was like, I've never felt like this before. When walking feels as good as anything that you've ever experienced in your life, you've removed a serious amount of tension and stress and distortion from your body. And these little subtle things like washing the dishes or doing the laundry or cleaning your car. These are things that actually are like enjoyable,
Pleasures
right?
of life. Yeah.
Right. It's like everything you do is pleasurable when you're out of stress and distortion and tension. And so for me, one of the things I think is most important for every listener to know is that how do you get to pain? There's a very specific pathway and no one talks about it. I mean, it's a really deep, important message. So when we look at pain, we have to give it four categories, right? There's physical pain, there's emotional pain, there's spiritual pain, and there's mental pain. And so how do you get into those states, right? Well, guess what? The first step is that you have to have an irrational fear.
Wow.
And when you run an irrational fear, what it does is it puts your brain in what's called a lateralized state of function. And a lateralized state of function means that one hemisphere is turned on electrically and the other hemisphere is turned off. And the way that that shows up is if my right hemisphere of my brain is turned on, the left side of my body is turned on. All the power's on. If the left side of my brain is turned off electrically, the right side of my body, the power's turned off. So now I'm moving through the world. And this is true for 99.9% of all humans. I promise you, if you're listening to this call, this is true for you. And I don't care how much yoga you've done, how much meditation you've done, how much green juice you've sipped. There's no substitution for what I'm talking about. So when your brain's in a lateralized state of function, okay, that weakness from that limiting belief has turned off half of your brain. And now that produces a massive amount of stress because everything that you're perceiving with your sense organs, your ears, your eyes, your nose, and all your extrasensory perceptions, okay, you're viewing the world from a position of fear. Okay.
That's beautiful.
Now that you're running that, your body starts to accumulate massive amounts of tension. And in order to get just a tiny bit of tension in your body, you need a massive amount of unresolved stress. Okay. In order to get a little bit of distortion in your body, and a little bit of distortion will create chronic joint pain at any joint, you need a massive amount of tension. Okay. Now, when you get into a state of distortion structurally, okay, that leads to physical pain, all right? But simultaneously, it leads to emotional pain. Why? Because you have two feeling bodies and you have two thinking bodies. Now, the two thinking bodies are spiritual and analytical. The two feeling bodies are instinctual and emotional, right? So if I got a bunch of tension in my body that's creating distortion, I'm shut off from my instincts. I'm shut off from the potential of my ability to feel and access emotional intelligence. I get shut off from my ability to connect to spiritual intelligence and be able to do the right things in terms of my ethics, my morals, my values, and my principles. And then I get shut off to analysis. So instead of making good decisions, I'm making poor decisions. Instead of living a sober life that's in reality, I'm living in fantasy. Instead of understanding the situation that's going on around me, I'm choosing to change who I am to manage the people around me. And instead of being able to problem solve easily, I'm coming up and creating problems that don't need to be created. And so all of these states are actually created from a limiting belief. And the majority of those limiting beliefs, they come from your mom and your dad, because all children from womb until they're 13, they are a sponge. And what that means is their cells, the charge on their water molecules is negative, which means they're purely in the receptive mode and they're only mimicking their parents' inner deficiencies, insecurities, fears, and unconscious and subconscious stress patterns. And then parents wonder why is my daughter puking on me when she turned 14? Because you loaded her up with all of this stress, tension, and distortion, and then you expect her to live by your standards rather than actually being who it is she really is.
Sure. And man, I know I'm supposed to ask you some questions, and I'm not talking about, like to guide you along, but I don't think you like up to this point, Christopher, you haven't needed any questions, brother. You're spewing so much goodness and so much valuable wisdom. This is amazing. This is like one of my favorite like interviews of all time, right? I don't even know if I'm interviewing you. I think you're just like in the zone, and it's beautiful because again, I'm going to say it. It's so counterculture. No one's talking about taking care of the vessel that you've been given. And I'm looking right across my desk. I'm looking at a copy of You Can Heal Your Life by Louise Hay. And what Louise Hay is, in this book that she wrote decades ago, and Louise is dead now, but she said every physical condition has an underlying emotional pain or construct or something. And Western medicine is, we just put like Band-Aids over cancer and like there's so many emotional things that are causing these things. But until you take time and take your breath and exhale and stop and hit pause on your life and really ask what your body is talking to you about, it's your body's giving you messages all the time. And are you really paying attention to understand what's happening inside of your mind and inside of your body and your emotional body, your spiritual body? And it's beautiful. And you're always getting those messages. The question is, are you taking time to really understand? So Christopher, you like this journey of yours from SEAL to spiritual teacher. I'm just going to call you what you are, spiritual teacher.
Yeah.
This has been was that an easy transition? How did this transition happen? How did you go from, the hustle and grind of SEAL to enlightened sage, man? Just, tell us a little bit about that transition.
I mean, the transition for me was pain, right? And this is for all the callers listening. If you use your pain as an opportunity to investigate, then guess what? You'll have an opportunity to wake up. So when I was 27, I got a DUI. Okay. And it was rare because it was one of the times that I went out drinking and I literally had one drink, right? But I like to drive fast. My nervous system was in state of hypervigilance. So if I was driving 90, I was super relaxed, right? If I was driving 110, I was even more relaxed, right? If I was driving 55, I was stressed. So I'm driving like 80, driving home, cops pull me over for speeding, and they take me to a drunk tank. I blow 0.08, right? I'm sitting in this drunk.
Holy crap.
No, on what was rum and Coke.
Oh, one drink. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it was mostly rum.
I see.
So I'm in this drunk tank, right? Sitting across from me are five guys that are like, they're KO'd, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm looking at these guys and I'm like, wow, these dudes are a mess. And then I hear this little voice in the back of my head go, really? You're judging them? Let me tell you something. If you don't get your act together, this is going to be you in 20 years. And for some reason, I heard that message loud and clear. I went home. I unlocked the door. I had a bathroom downstairs, a half bath, and it had this huge mirror. And I stood in front of the sink and I had a 2-hour conversation with myself. And what my spirit wanted me to know is I needed to figure out everything that happened in my history and my family's history that led me to that moment of getting locked up. And so I called up my Aunt Betty and I went out to visit her. She lived in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania at the time. And I went and I sat down with her and I told her some of the things that I was struggling with. And she goes, well, there's a bunch of secrets in our family. And she started sharing these secrets with me. And I was like, I get it. Now I understand where it came from. How do I solve it?
Sure.
And when I asked that question in a really deep way, when I asked my spirit, I didn't know that my spirit was going to use my body as the driver and the catalyst for me to discover how I got from A to B. And as I started to unravel all of this, I remembered that there was a teacher when I was in school named Mr. Cook. And Mr. Cook taught a religious studies class. And I'm sitting in class. I was in like 9th or 10th grade. And he says, the sins of your forefathers will be revisited for 4 to 7 generations. What does that mean? And he posed that question to everyone in class. I went to boarding school for 10 years. Do you know it's the only question I ever remember being asked? I had no idea that God had already tasked me, right? When I was in 9th or 10th grade, he had already said, this is what your life is about.
That question was the only question in school that was relevant to your life path.
Yeah.
That's why you remember.
It was the only question, right? Like it crystallized in my mind. And I was like, okay. So when I started writing my book, which is called Free for Life, a U.S. Navy SEAL's Unique Path to Inner Freedom Out of Peace. As I started writing the book, I remembered the question. I remembered the moment and I remember the temperature outside. I remember how dark it was in the room. I remember what seat I was sitting in, what row I was sitting in. And then I realized in that moment that, oh, God had already tasked me. He'd already gave me my orders. He already gave me the mission. He already gave me the purpose.
Beautiful.
And all I needed to do was remember. And as I started to remember, that's when my body started shutting down. And I started having all these problems. And God wanted to get me off of the lone wolf, hyper independent train. And I was stubborn. Like I just kept training through injuries. And I kept training through more injuries. And then it got to the place where it got in my hip. And when it got into the center of my hip, I could never get away from it. And so just imagine like an ice pick, someone going thump, thump, thump all day, every day, whether you're sleeping, lying, hopping, skipping, running, jumping, in a car, watching a movie, sitting it didn't matter what position I was in. I was always in chronic discomfort. And that's when I reached out. And I reached out to a guy that I was in the SEAL teams with. Guy's name was Jeff Higgs. And Jeff helped me out. He's the first guy that got me started. And he taught me some things. And he was going through these movements and he was looking fluid. And I was stiff as as a human could possibly be.
That was all the tension in your body, accumulated tension and stress in your body. Sure.
But the problem was, that from the outside, I looked like Adonis. Right. And so I'm seeing the image of myself, right, in the mirror, right, in my reflections. But then what's going on under the hood, I'm not sharing it with anyone. I'm not telling anyone I'm in pain. I'm just dealing with it. And the truth is, I wasn't dealing with it because I never felt comfortable enough to ask someone else for help. In fact, I didn't even know that you could because I grew up in a family where no one actually talked about anything that had any substance, right? We might talk about like Penn State playing Notre Dame. We might talk about the Eagles playing the Cowboys, stuff about sports and that kind of stuff. Well, we never talked about any emotional pain, any energetic pain, any psychological challenges, any physical limitations. That wasn't up for discussion in my family. It was all jokes and sarcasm, right? So everyone's joking and sarcastic, but at the same time, everybody was suffering, right? My grandfather, he passed of cirrhosis of the liver, right? So my mom, she committed suicide. So this just shows you, like, in my lineage, just go back 1 or 2 generations and you see intense amounts of emotional and psychological pain. And as I opened my body, and I got my first bit of help, I started to feel some hope. I started to feel like things could really change. But I met this guy named Stephen Bulger, and he was a hella worker. And I wrote my name down on the health waiver, right? And he comes in and he says to me, "Who are you?" And I said, "Well, I'm an athlete." And he says, "Well, here at the top of your form, it says your name is Christopher Maher. You should think about that." And I'm thinking, what? Who's this guy? I didn't come here for psychobabble, right? Mm-hmm. I came here for this guy to get my body ready so I could have a really good race maybe fast enough to have a qualifying time to get to the Olympic trials. And I was failing miserably at being able to do that. And I thought, well, this is going to help a lot. And guess what? It helped me physically a tiny bit, but psychologically, it helped me intensely because I had to start questioning why I was considering myself to be an athlete and not to be Christopher. Why was I introducing myself that way? And then I started to realize as I went through some self-introspection, all my rewards, all my accolades, all of my esteem was attached to being an athlete.
Sure.
Your identity, my identity had been attached to what I was doing versus who I was being.
Right.
And that was, that was a tough pill to swallow, right? I was 29 at the time. Okay. That's a very difficult pill to swallow. I still have the goal of attempting to get to the Olympic trials. And now I have this awakening of like, why are you doing this in the first place? Like, what's missing inside of you that you're over identifying? And, there were many little moments, but that was a big moment, the reaching out for help and then realizing that I had over identified with doing versus being.
Yeah. And again, going back to, I want to make sure we anchor this is that Christopher is not stating that we shouldn't look to achieve and attain and we shouldn't look to create success. It's make sure you understand why you're doing this, what your intentions are, and that you're not identified with the thing that, that you're looking to achieve. It's not about, we're human beings. And Christopher, I'm just going to, speak my piece for a second. We're human beings and there is certain ambitious qualities to being a human, right? So it is about our lives. I love to commit to something bigger than myself, right? That's beyond my own comfort and my own security, and make sure the mission of my business is to leave the world a more loving place. My ambition is to leave the world better than I found it, right? And that's why I have a podcast, and that's why I teach and coach and write books and things. It's all with one ambition in mind, is to leave the world better than I found it. And I think that's a good human quality. It's just, don't think that is your worth and that is your value. And that's who you are. You're a human being that's is already everything we want to be. We're already adequate. We're already significant. We're already secure. We're already divine. We're eternal. We're everything. We are the universe in a human form. And we get to have fun with life, and we don't have to do it at the expense of our vehicle with high levels of stress.
Yes, so exactly. So the thing for me as you're sharing this is to make a distinction for people. And the distinction is you can have success and you can achieve things. If you had two choices to do it through ease and grace versus struggle and strife, why would you choose struggle and strife?
Beautiful. Because you don't know the other way. You don't know how to do it the other way.
Right. And so there's a paradigm shift.
Or you think there's some glamour in the struggle, right? For some reason.
Yes. And that is what has been pushed for way too long. Okay. There's glamour in the struggle. Right. And if I'm struggling, then the thing that I'm doing has value. And the truth is, it's not true.
Right.
If it were true, it would be okay. All right. The truth is, that's a limiting belief. Right. We are now having a paradigm shift on the planet, and there are people that are speaking to similar messages that you and I are speaking to. Grow through ease and grace versus struggle and strife. There's no need to struggle. There's no need for headache. There's no need for back pain. There's no need for knee pain. All of those ideas are limiting and false. Okay. And what makes them limiting is that they're false. So yes, choose goals that align to your morals, your values, your ethics, and your principles, and build your inner self-esteem. Choose goals that tear you apart, and you're lowering your esteem, and you're going to be dealing with high levels of frustration, agitation, and irritation, right? The person who's the most intelligent gets to where they're going with the least amount of effort and energy and resistance. Right? We see it in sports all the time. Okay. Just Tom Brady's is one of the guys that I love because he has been doing and was doing forms of body work and energy work as an athlete that no one else was willing to do. Like all the other guys, they were willing to go to the chiropractors and to get a massage and
Traditional
maybe
stuff. Sure.
right, the traditional stuff. And maybe they step out beyond that and maybe they get some acupuncture, right? But the guys that are willing to do structural integration and meditation mixed with, acupuncture and massage and all these other things, those guys are performing at levels of experience that we sit and observe in awe of. Right. Okay. And guess what? It's the only reason why Tom's been in the league 22 years. He's won 1/3 of the Super Bowls.
Sure.
Okay. And we got to watch the same guy show up and win continuously. And I can't believe the other guys are sitting around, and he's told people the types of people that he's worked with. And the fact that they're not out there getting that work for themselves drives me crazy.
Find somebody who's already achieved what you want to achieve and ask them what they're doing.
Yes, and that's what they're doing, right? Right. He's showing up to the stadium. He's not throwing 1,000 balls. He's got this guy that shows up. He does these interesting things with his body. And here he is. He's going to be 45. I get maybe he is 45. He's out there tossing the pill around, having a great time. And he's 45. But let's just go back 20 years. That wasn't possible 20 years ago. Right. Because those guys were retiring from football. If they made it to 33 and they were still throwing it around the yard, that was successful, right? Imagine what it's going to be like when people are actually implementing the message that you and I are giving, which is take a half step back, lube up the machine before you use it, and put it away in the correct place when you're done.
Well, there's a float tank center that I go to here local to St. Louis, and it's pretty common to see Blues and Cardinals walking in and out of that place. So it's catching on, man. The professional athletes are catching on, and they also have an infrared sauna, and they also just put in a dunk tank. So this stuff is catching on. It's mind, body, emotional healing, deep emotional type stuff is really catching on, and it's catching a wave, right? And people are seeing the benefits from it. And this is, these are, you said some, first of all, let me go back 2 minutes into when you jumped on. You said effortless effort. And that, like, I wrote that down. So, I didn't get to it until now, but you said effortless effort. And we're looking for our goals. We're looking to achieve our goals, and we don't need to exert and struggle and stress. Effortless effort is the smart person's way to success and achievement. And I think that's what we're talking about here, right?
And there's the least amount of wear and tear on their body.
Right. And the longevity increases, right?
Right. Like dramatically. Look, I'm going to be 55. Okay. I'm as strong as any 18-year-old kid. I'm as flexible as any 15-year-old kid. Right. My body, my energy, my hearing is great. My vision is great. All those systems are still operating at a normal level, right? Where all of my friends, they wear glasses. You say their name, they can't hear you. You have to speak louder. Like, your body is meant to express its genius and its passion into the world for a very long time. Yeah. And when you're grinding constantly to achieve a goal, you're limiting the ability that you're going to be able to share your message in terms of time. So instead of being able to do it till you're 65, right? You only get to do it till you're 52. Right.
So my wife and I just went on a double date last night with some good friends of ours, and the gal that was there, and she was sitting across from my wife. And when we were talking about, what's happening in our life and the deep work, we don't have those superficial conversations, Christopher. We go deep with everyone that we come in contact with. We don't have superficial relationships in our life. And she said these words. She said, my body betrays me every once in a while. And I said, Tell me more. Tell me more about she said, every once in a while when something happens, I feel anxiety, like my body is betraying me. I said, your body is not betraying you. Your body is telling you what it needs from you. Your body is helping you understand that it needs something that it's not getting. It needs to express something that it's not expressing. You're stuffing something that you're not allowing to dissolve or to resolve. You're trying to get it to go away. And you think if you don't feel it, that it doesn't exist, but your body's not betraying you. Your body is being your best friend. And this is the difference. You and I had a conversation. This is the difference between stress management and stress resolution.
That's right.
And what you're talking about is the gradual, I don't know the word, not the gradual accumulation of stress, like the hustle and grind and struggle, but it's the gradual letting go and release of stress.
That's right.
For your life. So what are your techniques, right? And how do you explain stress management versus stress resolution?
Stress management versus stress resolution is when you're in stress management, you're using something outside of yourself, right? So beautiful. For some people, the way they want to manage their stress is through caffeine, right? Other people want to manage their stress through the use of alcohol. Other people, they manage their stress through nicotine, right? Or marijuana. Other people manage their stress through excessive exercise, okay? Whatever you're doing, anything that you're doing that puts more stress in your body is actually creating more problems.
Right.
So if you're pounding on sugar, right? And the reason why people pound on sugar because they like the taste of sweet. Well, what's sweet associated with? Sweet is associated with communication. So when someone isn't communicating their desires, wants, and their needs to their community or to their family or to their friends, guess what? They have to stuff, and then they have to put sugar, right? They have to pile ice cream on top of shit and pretend that it's ice cream. Okay?
My goodness. What freaking wisdom. Go ahead. Keep going.
Right? So they're piling ice cream on top of shit. They're calling it ice cream, right? But at the end of the day, what's happening is every decade that they continue to engage that behavior and that strategy, they get more addicted to management strategies. And management strategies, again, are what we call the daily acceptable drugs. What are the daily acceptable drugs? Nicotine, caffeine, alcohol, and refined white sugar. Okay.
Work.
So, yes. Okay?
Work.
Yep.
So good.
Okay. So when you're in stress management, you're actually interfering with your body's ability to go into stress resolution. Now, what I mean by that is this. When your lifetime accumulated stress load is 86 out of 100, your restore, repair, and recovery rate is super low. And what that means is you need a lot of sleep in order to resolve the day before stress load. Okay. So when your lifetime accumulated stress is getting higher, your restore, repair, and recovery rate goes lower, which means you need more sleep. But guess what? The inverse is also true. If I reduce my lifetime accumulated stress load to 50%, that's it, only 50%, my restore, repair, and recovery rate goes super high. And it means if I get 4.5, 5 hours sleep, 6 hours sleep, I feel like a rock star. I feel like Superman. My emotions are grounded. I'm mentally quiet. My body's super comfortable and my energy's abundant, right? Now, when you're in stress management, what you're doing is you're increasing your lifetime accumulated stress load because your daily stress is from Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday is being carried into Friday and Saturday. And on Friday and Saturday, you're pounding the wine, or you're pounding, the edibles, or you're spending the whole day in the garage trying to fix something on Saturday. Well, what you should be doing is resting and relaxing, but you can't because your brain, your body, and nervous system are on what's called a biochemical roller coaster, right? You take the uppers during the day, you take the downers at night. You call it a day, you wake up and you do it all over again. But that is increasing what's called your daily accumulated stress. And once your daily accumulated stress load reaches a certain level, it causes your ability to heal from the day before to be severely reduced. And how do you see it? People start getting dark circles under their eyes, right? They start getting bags under their eyes. They start having a massive amount of tension in their muscles, their neck and shoulders. Okay, you can see it in their posture. You can feel it in their energy. You can smell it on their breath, right? Mm-hmm. And I work on a lot of people. So people come in to see me, they have what I call the funk foot, right? And I can tell from the moment they start laying down and I start working with their body and their energy, I can tell how high their lifetime accumulated stress load is based on how smelly their shoes are.
Wow.
Right?
Wow.
How bad their feet stink. And there's never been a person to come in here that has not had the funk foot. And I worked with a lot of professional athletes. I've worked with a lot of superstars in all fields. Okay. When I reduce that lifetime accumulated stress load down to 50, the funk foot disappears. Okay. Because their body, when they go to sleep, is able to repair from all the things that they're doing. But guess what they do? I never tell people what to eat. When I reduce their lifetime accumulated stress load in their stomach channel and their large intestine channel, they automatically make different food choices. They're no longer attracted to alcohol. They're no longer attracted to sugar. They're no longer attracted to nicotine. Those things simply, those cravings, they disappear because when we're stressed, we want things that stress us out more.
Those are all coping mechanisms, right? And when the stress load goes down, the need for the coping mechanism
disappears. It disappears.
Beautiful.
That's called stress resolution, right? We're resolving. We're acting as a successful pattern interrupt to the way this person is managing their stress. And then suddenly the husband's communicating to the wife that he has these needs. Or the wife is communicating to the husband that, hey, I don't like it when you talk to me this way in front of the kids. Instead of bottling it up, getting passive aggressive, stuffing it, and then punishing him later in different ways, right? When your lifetime accumulated stress load is reduced, you are acting and behaving in the highest function, right? So what we would call those are low functioning psychological emotional qualities or high functioning emotional psychological qualities. So the way we can make a distinction for this is either a person is empowered or they're disempowered. When your lifetime accumulated stress load is high, instead of being powerful, you shift into being passive aggressive, right?
Wow.
When your lifetime accumulated stress load is high, instead of being spacious, you shift into being controlling, right? When your lifetime accumulated stress load is high, instead of being honest, you shift into being dishonest, right? And the person who pays the cost is not only you, but every single person that's in your sphere of influence. So if you're a CEO of a Fortune 500 company that employs 26,000 people, every single one of those people that are underneath your umbrella of influence are all impacted by your choices.
You're all feeling it. Yep, absolutely.
Right. And so if you're on the call and you can't muster the courage to do it for yourself, right? Muster the courage to do it because you're a dad or you're a mom and you got kids, or muster the courage because you're a coach or you're a teacher and you have students, or muster the courage because you're a business owner, right? And you have employees. Like when your lifetime accumulated stress load is low, everyone that's in your field gets to ride on that happy, peaceful space that you're in, because all nervous systems vibrate to the highest functioning nervous system in a collective field. So what that means is this: if I'm in a state of continuous peace, wherever I go, everyone who is in my sphere of influence has to operate in that state of peace. If I'm in a state of stress and struggle, everyone who relates to me, I draw them into struggle as well. So the leaders on the planet should be doing what? They are the ones, and the moms and the dads and the teachers and coaches, those are the ones that need to focus on reducing their lifetime accumulated stress and operating from ease and grace, because they give everyone the opportunity who's in touch with them to do so. Now, not only are you impacting yourself, you're impacting every single life that you touch at an unconscious and a subconscious level, simply because you chose to reduce your lifetime accumulated stress. What could be better than that? I mean, that's the easiest way to make the planet a better place. And all it requires is what, 15 to 20 minutes a day of dealing with your daily accumulated stress. That's all you have to do. And not only do you deal with that, you look better, you smell better, you feel better, you sleep better, everything is better. Like, who would want anything different than that? People who their lifetime accumulated stress load is super high, they don't want anything to do with that, because they want to keep operating at the way that they're operating. So how do we help those people, right? First, they got to have the information. If they don't have the information, it's got to be distilled to them in a way that's understandable and logical and simple, right? What does Occam Razor's principle state? It states that the simple, easiest answer is most likely the one that's most true. So the truth here is if your lifetime accumulated stress load is high, you're getting a fraction of the life that you could possibly have, financially, emotionally, energetically, psychologically, and physically. You're getting a fraction, right? You're spending your capital instead of benefiting from your interest. And every day you dip into your capital, you get older. Every day you dip in your capital, you look more wrinkly. Every day you dig into capital, you got more pain. Every day you dig in your capital, you're less intelligent, right? You got to live off your interests. How do you build your interest? You build your interest through exercise, right? Best form of exercise. Okay. What does BEST stand for? BEST stands for bioenergetic self-transformational sequences. I've made it so easy that all you've got to do is remove this stress load from yourself. What do you got to do? You got to do body of light. You've got to break your loyalty to your parents' insecurities and inner deficiencies. And if you can do that, you can experience overwhelming states of freedom, which means that you actually realize that you're at choice. And when you're at choice, a person who's at choice always chooses ease and grace over struggle and strife. When you're choiceless, struggle and strife seems very attractive.
Oh, man, that's beautiful. Christopher, where the hell did you come from? Here's what I know is I've watched, and this is an audio podcast, but I'm watching your energy and your passion just like went off the hook, right?
Yeah.
It was there the whole time. Your intensity was there the whole time, but your passion just went up. And what I'm saying is you really do give a shit about people, man. You really do make a difference in the world. And I'll back up everything that you just said. And here's what I mean by that is the best thing I ever did for my family was taking time to nurture and care for my own wounds and my own mortality and my own mental chaos and my own emotional grief and the pain that was inside. And as I downshifted and as I started to let go of these rocks and this baggage and this burden that I accumulated during the course of my life, I didn't need to force them to do anything. They made that choice themselves, because as you just said, everyone rises at the highest level of vibration in the area and in the aura, in the community. Right. So, and it's so like, this is how we lead others. Like leaders take care of themselves, put themselves at the forefront of healing and of performance and of making sure that our wants, needs are taken care of, and everyone rises to that same level. But if we sacrifice ourselves, if we're constantly in conflict with ourselves, if we constantly disrespect ourselves, if we mistreat ourselves, if we abuse ourselves, if it's always about hustle and grind, everyone thinks that's the right way. And then everybody just becomes more depleted together.
Yeah.
Brother, what a beautiful message you have to share, and what a gift to the world that you are. And Look, it's the first time I've ever said this, but I'm going to go back and listen to this podcast episode like 1,000 times, because this is it, my man. And I'm so glad. It's been a privilege and an honor to have you here and to share. And I have a feeling that this isn't the last time that we're gonna jam together, right?
Oh, well, for me, I look at you and I think, well, how can we get you in a position where you can benefit from the things that I know beyond what I'm sharing emotionally, energetically, and psychologically? There are actual practical systems that I have that you can implement that will up-level every single thing that you're doing. I mean, up-level everything that you're doing. And I want you to benefit from that.
Well, tell us where people can find the easiest way for people to find you and connect with you and connect with your message and get the benefit of your existence.
Okay. The easiest way is for them to go to truebodyintelligence.com. And when you go to True Body Intelligence, that portal is the home of full spectrum development. And so I'm what's called an adept. As an adept, my awareness is around light as intelligence, and how that light brings information to affect us in very positive ways. So when you're at truebodyintelligence.com, there's going to be a place where there's some podcasts that I was on. There's information there, like get an education, right? There's a book. Order the book. It's a small bet. Like
what's the book's title?
Yeah, the title of the book is called Free for Life, a U.S. Navy SEAL's unique path to inner freedom and outer peace. I give you a high-level education. Every single person that I talk to that's read the book says, I couldn't put it down. And it's a super quick read because the things that I'm teaching you are real. They come from my life experience, right? I'm the type of person, I'd like to lead from behind, right? Other people like to be on the forefront. I'm not really comfortable being out in the front, but I wrote the book so that at least you could access the information and get the education, because without the education, you actually can't take practical steps towards the things that I'm teaching you. So you can get the book there. There's also a course that you can take, the 8 Stepping Stones to Inner Freedom, which I think would be really beneficial. But if you're going to take simply a small bet, get the book, read the book. You can email me at the site, support@truebodyintelligence.com, and we will show you the pathway. If you're interested in going deeper, there's a couple avenues that we can talk about that will get you on the path to freedom. And when I say freedom, I mean that you are at choice of choosing struggle and strife versus ease and grace.
Beautiful, beautiful. So the easiest way is your website, which
at
is
truebodyintelligence.com.
And if they want to connect directly with you, support at
truebodyintelligence.com.
And guys, I'll put those 2 links in the show notes. This isn't the last time you're going to hear from Christopher. I'm sure, this is from, here's what I'll say. I always think when I have an interview, I think of, there's always a from to, right? And you're like, from seal to sage, brother. That's what I'm going to give you the title of this episode right now. From seal to sage, brother. Brother, wow. You're a gift to this world, man. And you're just getting started.
And you're so right. You're so right. We are just getting started. And you know what? We need people like you who open the doors for people like me to share the wisdom and the knowledge and the love that we have for our brothers and sisters, because we're in a time where we go together or we don't go at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
No doubt. And when one of us gets better, all of us get better.
That's right.
And when one of us enjoys life more, everyone
gets that. And when one of us suffers, everyone suffers. And once people really understand the importance of that, they make different decisions.
Leaders don't celebrate struggle. Brother, thank you so much for your time, for your energy, for your effort. And
awesome.
More importantly, thank you for the courage you have to share who you are with the world. You're a gift, man.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Hey, thanks for listening. For more free content, a list of upcoming events, or our life-changing offerings, visit our website at www.innerwealthglobal.com.